Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. And yes, today I will be wearing this hat to cover something reddish on my forehead. Sorry, I have just an astronaut hat in my wardrobe. Well, anyways, let's go. Russia advances in Avdiivka direction. They continue to attack Ukrainian forces. We have this update from the Institute of the Study of War. The deep state military map hasn't published today's version so far. That's why let's check this one. Russia advances towards Orlivka. Actually, yesterday Ukraine tried to perform a counterattack according to our General Commander Syrskyi. He said that he called for reinforcements and actually our guys were successful out there ambushing Russian vehicles and army men. Let me show you some of the photos. The latest drone images were published by our soldier who is fighting in a place. As you can see, Russia is using T-62 kind of the old tanks in Avdiivka direction as well. Before they used those just in Kherson direction. He said that those tanks were T-62 MV modification, one with extra armor and the one without. Here I found more photos, more closer perspective, let's say. So this tank has some extra protection and grill on the top, but the rest of the tanks, no, just naked as from the factory. This one in particular rolled over the mine. It lost some of the wheels and caterpillar or track you may call it. So it was abandoned by the crew. Even though T-62 is kind of the small tank, it requires 4 crew members to operate. Unlike on later modification of T-72 for example, where the automatic reloader is installed. And later on Ukraine had to finish the Russian tanks from the drone drops. Otherwise they might evacuate their tanks from the front lines. And in this condition it doesn't make sense. Same goes for BMPs. And here he publishes one more Russian tank, but it is northern direction near to Kupiansk, probably Synkivka village, so tank was kaboomed by Ukrainian drone. This is also north direction close to Terny. Russia lost BTRs, 4 of them. And on the south in Vodina, Russia lost MTLBs. There is also a video from Avdiivka direction, how Russia tried to assault from Stepova but failed today. Guys, unfortunately I'm unable to publish the video on this platform, so for the videos like that, please visit my Telegram channel. You may find it in the video description just below. There you'll see what happened to the Russian infantry. This map shows that Russia advanced from Stepova towards Berdichi. Yes, they had this attack vector today, but our guys reported that there was no success for the Russian army. So I wonder why we have this update. Because attack was basically repelled. I showed you the video of the Russian BTR before. They tried to use this road to advance towards the village, but it was a successful mission for Russia. And military expert Maiko73 shows us that definitely Russia tried to advance to Berdichi today, but failed. You see, vehicles were burning also from Ukrainian side. Unfortunately, analytics saw the video. But Russia advanced just a little on the northern part from Stepova. So in general, Ukraine was able to slow down the Russian offensive. If you check out the 3D map, you will see that Russia advances in 2 of the main vectors through 2 rivers in the area. And according to the information coming from the Ukrainian command, Ukraine was building the defense lines behind those lakes and rivers. I think over here, not here. It was done to reinforce those with the natural obstacles. If we zoom in just a little, you'll see that there is uphill over here and the elevation over there just a little higher compared to this place. That potentially gives Ukraine good ground for defense. On the south from Avdiivka, we also have a couple of the settlements that might help to reinforce defense too. It is interesting, but in Vuhledar direction, Ukrainian army propelled a little. We have the confirmation about it from ISW, and also my Co73 says about it. This video shows the Russian supply vehicle gas that was damaged. The wheels of those were damaged. With the help of the thorns or spikes you might call them, Ukraine started to drop those just on the Russian supply roads using drones. There are different modifications as you can see and they are very effective. Here is one more Russian vehicle, also with damaged wheel, and a Russian soldier shows what was dropped on the road. So he had to change a wheel. It could be a really effective method because Russians will not be able to get rid of those spikes. Ukraine drops them again and again. The Russian air defense Panzer 1S was damaged in Belgorod Oblast, Russian Federation. You might have just seen the strike itself, it was the FPV drone attack. However, the system didn't got the fire, but it was damaged and later on will not be in use for some time. Finally, we have the information, this time from the Russian side. I will check on the translation, that Ukraine started to produce 100,000 FPV drones per month. It's a lot. The plan is to transfer 2 million drones by the end of the year, not just FPV but other attack drones. And the Russian military bloggers are really concerned about the case. They have the FPV drone production too, but not in those numbers, and the quality of those drones is not as good as Ukrainian-made. Russians still construct the drones with alloy frame. Ukraine does it with carbon fiber. The Ukrainian drones are more light, more controllable, they fly on a longer distance and able to carry more of the payload. This is what makes Russians scared. The Russian airplanes continue to fly, but they were intercepted by the French airplanes over the Baltic Sea. France is so proactive this time. I wonder what happened with President Macron and some of the French officials. They gave the statement that I was surprised of. The French officials even say that they may allow special forces or regular military units to operate in Ukraine, as Le Monde says, to cross Ukrainian border for a strategic dilemma for Russia. I would be honest with you, many of the European countries are shocked about the France, and I wonder what happened to them. It is funny to watch Scholz every day. He says, no, it's not us, we're not sending our troops to Ukraine, we'll not fight against Russia this time. He's really worried to be involved in something big. But to be fair, Germany helps a lot. They are our biggest military supplier after the United States of America. Well, this time I think the first supplier. What's about F-16s and the pilot training program? It is at the final stage, as Ukrainian media say. Our pilots already know how to fly those airplanes, now they operate simulated combat missions on those. Yeah, this is one of the most beautiful airplanes ever made. Nothing extra, just pure power. It is the beast. It seems like North Korea has already transferred all of the available artillery shells to the Russian Federation, because according to analytics, all of the shipment suddenly stopped. Just to recall, nearly 7,000 containers with artillery shells were sent to the Russian Federation. Military experts say that it could be up to 3 million artillery shells. The number is just crazy, but what I know that North Korean shells are not as good as Russian or Iranian made. There are many complaints about it from the Russian side. Some of the data about the new Magura drone boats leaked to the press. Now we know that the payload of this boat, so TNT, is 860 kilograms, almost 1 ton. And what is more shocking as for me is the distance of the drone. 950 kilometers, almost 1,000 kilometers on a drone boat. The biggest disadvantage is still a 3-second delay in control of the boat, which makes it harder to navigate into the small ships. Nevertheless, Ukraine was quite successful, downing even the Russian small rocket ship recently. Maybe this boat could damage the Kerch Bridge significantly. But the problem is that Russia put some of the floating barricades against those drone boats. Well, this year for sure we'll see if they're able to penetrate those barricades. Ukraine promised to close the Kerch Bridge completely this year. The Canadian Defense Minister also said that they may send some of the soldiers to Ukraine, but only for training. It will be qualified military personnel that could be used in very limited areas, which is also good. Argentina transferred MiLiF helicopters to Ukraine, which it got from Russia at first. Mi-171E modification, it's the military cargo transport helicopter. The source Financial Times is not saying about how many of those helicopters were transferred to Ukraine. Well, it's the classified information doesn't really matter, so it's good news for Ukraine. Also, Argentina is planning to organize the summit dedicated to support of Ukraine by the South American countries. Argentina wants to take a leading role in supporting Ukraine. Alright, the new military map update from the deep state was released, so let's go to Avdiivka direction. Let's check out the timeline if there were some of the changes. No, for today they're saying that there are no any changes, and those are the good news. Also, they say that Ukraine is pushing the Russian forces near to Davydov. We're speaking about the Kupiansk region, it's Kharkivska Oblast. However, the deep state military map source says that Russia advanced towards Ivanovsk, taking the vast part of the village. Shit. Also, little by little, they are taking Novomikhailivka under control. Here you see that still the biggest part is under Ukrainian control, but Russia advanced today to this street, attacking the village from 2 of the directions. My prediction that Ukraine will lose Novomikhailivka in a couple of weeks. And Russia goes westbound from Marinka direction, so it was yesterday and it is today. They advance through this lake. Their goal is to reach Kurakhove. Kurakhove is over here. The distance to Kurakhove from the Russian positions is 12 and 2 kilometers, roughly 8 miles. Not a big distance, I would say. I hope that Ukraine prepared some of the defense lines. By the way, recently Russia attacked Kharkiv using aviation bombs. There were 2 of the attacks. The phone conversation between German generals leaked to the press. They were talking about the German-made Taurus cruise missile capabilities and how it might be delivered to Ukraine and harm the Kerch Bridge. Also, generals discussed the Ukrainian pilot training program on F-16s. I have the full leaked conversation on my Telegram. It's in origin in German, and find the main information from our German speakers who would obviously answer your questions. By the way, it was published by RT, Russian media, propaganda, so maybe they were spying on German generals. From what I understood, that if they speak about Taurus, that finally it will be transferred to Ukraine. Netherlands signed the documents for security guarantees of Ukraine that might last for 10 years. Ukraine already signed those deals with some of the European countries. By the way, today it was the funeral of Navalny. His body was buried in Moscow in one of the cemeteries out there, and people came, but not as many as I expected. But people were coming there even during the nighttime. As you can see, Russia deployed the police forces. They tried to close the local cemetery, but the crowd was able to break through. So it is the end of the Russian political opposition. I don't think that this movement will develop without Navalny. The peaceful protest doesn't change anything in Russia. I expected real riots to happen today, but nothing happened. No harm for Putin's regime. President Macron also said a couple of words about Navalny. There was a presentation done by the Russian veteran movement. They wanted to tell people more about so-called special military operation, and they named this meeting "Know the Face of Your Hero." Know the face, and they hide the face. Why? If it is your hero, probably they afraid something. It seems like Russia has some of the plans for Moldova. At least the rhetorics from the Russian Federation is very similar as for Ukraine. Because the Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov says that Moldova is following the Ukrainian steps. So logically, if they follow those steps, Russia should denazify them? This term they like to say always, but we know that Russia is in lack of the tools to reach Moldova even. So for now, no extra war. But those bastards might find out the way how to blackmail Moldova or to do some harm in a different way. Yeah, the look of this face is total disgust and evil. Probably you heard about the Istanbul negotiations at the very beginning of this war. Then there were some of the meetings of the Russian and the Ukrainian representatives. We have the points in the document from the Russian side. They insisted on this. So Ukraine is prohibited from joining any kind of the military alliances such as NATO. There will be no foreign weaponry on its territory. The armed forces of Ukraine are reducing. According to Russia, Ukraine was allowed to have a little bit more than 300 tanks, around 500 of the armored vehicles, and some of the artillery systems. This quantity is the usual thing for Russia to lose, for example, in Avdiivka. Also, the missiles range should be limited down to 40 kilometers. Ukraine recognizes the occupied Crimea as the Russian territory. Crimea will not be neutral, it will go under Russia. Russian language should be equal with the Ukrainian in the government and in the life of the people. Basically, Russia wanted to make the second official language Russian. Moreover, there was one point that in case Russia attacks Ukraine, Ukraine has no right to ask for weaponry from the Western allies. Well, we see that all of this bullshit is just crazy. It is very close to Minsk agreements, by the way, but applied on all of the Ukrainian territory. I'm very happy that Ukraine didn't sign this document. And Boris Johnson actually did the right thing, advising Ukraine not to sign it. It is just a temporary deal that could have stopped war, yes, but for some time. Actually, it's the deal for capitulation of Ukraine, for losing its sovereignty. With those kind of the laws implemented, Ukraine would be an easy target for Russia. And it is the reason why the peace agreements are not possible right now. But Zelensky said that there will be no any negotiations with Putin, which is good. And also, only if you want to support my job, please check out my personal links in the video description just below. You may support me on Patreon or just on the sponsorship of this YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your kind support. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.